You're watching the Wellness Hour Consumer Report. I'm Randy Alvarez. Today's topic for you business owners, especially small business owners, succession planning. You've done well for many years, and now maybe you want to hand this over to family. You want to sell your business. Well, with us, we have an expert on this topic. He is our CPA. He is the Desert CPA, and he is the founder of the Mroz company, a team of accountants that do a great job in the desert. And we're going to talk about this succession planning with Mroz. Stan, welcome back to the program.
Oh, thank you, Randy. Thank you for coming, allowing me to come here.
Sure.
You know, the typical business person that I want to work with is that person who starts out as a sole proprietorship, small business, on their own, and all of a sudden they're growing. Or another good client would be one who's working with a bookkeeping firm and realizes that they're not getting proper accounting. They need to improve their accounting procedures and not worry about the IRS, coming after them. Or a client who is growing and needs more advice, more business advice and operational advice for their business than, say, an in-house bookkeeper.
Okay.
That's taking care of their books. So that's our
and we should mention, I mean, you have some of the biggest clients in the desert.
We have some good clients.
And I mean, you have the Wellness Hour. They're big, right?
Correct.
They're all over the country.
That's right. You're a very big client.
I've been using you for 17 years. You've dealt with the IRS on my behalf.
Correct.
I will tell you, when I see your number on my caller ID,
I
know it's not good. But I know it's not good. I go, this is bad news. Something went down.
It's not always bad news.
Most of the time.
But yeah.
Well, it's not that bad news.
Yeah.
But I know it's something that I did wrong.
And I get a response right away.
That's right.
Say, Stan, what's up? But no, we want to be out there for our clients. We want to be able to be ahead. We want to be proactive with our business clients.
Okay.
Because that's important. We don't want them to have something happen. We didn't know about it. They didn't tell us about it, or we didn't look at it. And all of a sudden there's a tax issue next year, or maybe another issue. I'll give you a good example. When some of our clients are aging, they're 65 or older, and they've been in business, and their businesses have been paying their medical insurance payments, which is a valid deduction, whether it's added to their W-2 or it's a C Corp, and they're able to deduct it as a benefit, as long as they're also paying the benefits for the other full-time employees. But once you become eligible for Medicare and you're on Medicare, you have to buy a supplemental insurance plan. And the typical business person goes, well, I've been paying my medical insurance. The business has been paying it all this time. I'm just going to continue. Well, for tax law...
And that's a mistake.
Yes, that's a mistake, because for tax law, it's okay. But under Medicare rules, you cannot do that. Because if you do, and the Medicare SSA catches you at doing that, Social Security Administration, then you may have to pay back all those benefits that they paid for you.
Interesting.
And I know there's a lot of health insurance people out there who know these rules, but not everybody understands these rules. So, we help our clients and make sure they're, they don't do that, and they don't end up with Medicare issues.
Now, we should mention, by the way, because today's topic is succession planning.
Correct.
What's defined? Let's have a working definition today of what we're talking about.
Well, we're talking about a business without the owner. That's what we're talking about. Now,
what does that mean? What do you mean?
Well, that can mean anything. It could mean death, disability, Alzheimer's. It could mean any situation where the owner is no longer available to run the business. Now, we know that most small businesses in America, 50% of all the businesses in America are small business.
Okay.
And they're typically one or two owners. If one of those owners, let's say the driving owner, is all of a sudden hit with a heart attack or a stroke, and mentally can't, be there for the business, and that can happen at any age. That young people are, dying of heart attacks, or you have a major car accident. My wife's son-in-law was T-boned on the way home from work. Big accident. He could have been killed, and that would have been the end of his business. So succession planning isn't just for the people who are getting close to 65, 70 and, want to start thinking about retirement. You should start thinking about...
So setting yourself up
ahead of time.
For your retirement.
Setting yourself up ahead of time for those unexpected medical or disease issues, but also for that typical businessman who's all of a sudden, close to 60, 65, and you need to start thinking about, okay, how much longer do I want to work? And who's going to buy this business? Now, most business owners think that their business is typically worth 5 or 10 times more than they are.
All right.
So one of the important issues is to determine what is the value of this business.
So this is what you do.
Yeah,
part of your firm. Okay.
We assist them in determining and getting ready for succession planning. It could, at a younger age, it could mean, if you're a corporation, you want to buy some insurance in case of death or disability. The insurance is bought by the corporation. Of course, it's not a deduction. The premiums aren't deductible. But when that ultimate thing happens, you die. The corporation gets these insurance premiums. The face value of the insurance policy is not taxable. Now, your heirs, your wife and your children, or your husband and your children, who's been depending on this income, now has this sum of money to buy the stock out and sell the business.
Okay.
So being prepared, even when you're younger, say with a disability income policy, in case you're disabled, so you have a source of income, because you may be the main bread owner.
Yeah, yeah.
But there are many factors that go along with succession, preparing for someone to take over your business.
So if you're going to sell it, you're helping them in a tax-efficient way how to sell it.
Correct.
If they're going to give it to their family, or you're teaching them in a tax-efficient way how to do that as well.
To buy it out, correct.
For the sake of today's discussion, we're talking with the Desert CPA, I always call you, one of the busiest guys in the desert, Stan Mroz. Succession planning. Okay, so let's assume that we're talking about somewhat successful. They've had success in their life.
Right.
They're a small business, and now they're reaching midlife, supposedly, right? Like I'm at midlife, supposedly.
Yeah.
And now I have to start thinking about retirement. I have to start thinking about putting more money away.
Yeah.
I have to think about, do I sell it? Do I leave it to family? What do I do?
Yeah.
So then I go to you and we have this discussion about setting that all up.
Correct. We sit down and we talk about all the steps that are necessary to prepare you for that. From the value of the company. Well, a good example on the value. Let's say that you waited until you were 65, but in that time period between 62 and 65, you're kind of getting tired.
Yeah.
And you were saying, well, I don't want to do as much work as I used to do, so I'm going to scale down a little bit. But what you forgot to determine was that meant the value of the business went down. So you want to make sure that when you're, when you're hot,
you sell it when you're hot.
You're preparing yourself to, increase the value of the business to what you think it should be worth, based on what your needs are after retirement, because you want that source of money. You want that payment coming out. So you want the right buyer. And in addition to that, you got the tax issue. How do you sell this? Do you sell the assets? Are you asset heavy, or are you more goodwill heavy? And how are you taxed on that? So you need to prepare yourself. If you're younger and you have a family, you need to know, okay, if something happens to me, how much does my family need to survive?
Are there a lot of businesses that are even successful that don't do this? What we're talking about right here?
Yes.
Because nobody plans on getting a heart attack. Nobody plans on dying unexpectedly or being disabled unexpectedly.
No.
All those kind of things.
Years ago, I had this really hot veterinarian practice in the Bay Area, up in San Jose. And they were going great guns. moved to a better school location, 2 young boys, a wife, and he died unexpectedly.
Terrible.
And we were talking about getting life insurance policies. Well, he kept deferring it. And so we never got to it because he was always too busy. So, and I kind of regretted, so I never, from that point on, I never let a client go without talking about life insurance and insisting when they have young children and families that they buy adequate life insurance while they're younger, and it's cheaper. Even if it's just term policy, it's protection in case of an accident or death. And so in that case, you know, I regretted that I didn't really
So succession planning, who normally handles this, by the way? Financial planners?
No.
And why a CPA?
Well, because we're pretty well versed in, in business and what a business is worth, how to set it up for that person, the buy-sell agreements, if you have partners, the life insurance planning, although, we don't claim ourselves to be expert in life insurance, so we bring in a life insurance expert to help us, do the planning for the client that best fits their life insurance or, say, disability insurance or long-term care insurance. From a long-term care aspect, if you end up not having someone who can care for you, and I've had friends who, I just had a friend whose husband was 6'4", weighed 250 pounds. And of course, the wife was an average wife, and they were both in their late 60s. Well, he had Alzheimer's, and all of a sudden he started falling down and having problems. She had to care for him because he didn't have this long-term care insurance. So had he had long-term care insurance, she could have hired, with the benefits of that policy, hired caregivers to come in. Or she could have had him in one of those care facilities that cost $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month.
So your succession planning would have notified them of their options of doing all these things.
Yeah, getting proper, insurance planning, choosing the right policies, with the assistance of good life and health insurance.
Now we should mention
experts.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, that as a CPA, with what you do, that CPAs or accountants, sometimes, they specialize. Some are just individual tax preparers. Some are just like bookkeepers. Maybe they worked for another company. And some have very limited experience on dealing with small businesses. Is that fair to say? That's very true?
Yes, I've seen it out there. Yeah, And
some may not have experience in this succession planning? Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it's kind of a new thing because, especially now because of the aging boomer population. We have, boomers out there who are starting to retire. They run small businesses, and they're thinking, well, okay, what are my options? Actually, if you start ahead of time and you're aware of this, then you're fully prepared. So what we try to do is help our clients be aware of these situations. Who's going to take over your business? How is it going to work? How are you going to get paid? What's the value? Are you choosing the right new owner? Culture in an office is very important. You have some really good employees here who all work together and they're loyal employees. Now, and you have your culture, how you treat them, what benefits you give them. And you want...
So if I'm going to sell it to somebody, and if I'm going to stay on a payment plan with these people, you're saying that I have to make sure that I sell it to somebody with those same values.
Same culture.
Same business culture.
Right, because, you treat your employees well.
We try to.
You try to,
we do.
I've worked in years past, in my younger days, I've worked with CPAs who've yelled at me. First year out of college, Of course, you don't know much. You're hoping that, your employer trains you. And one of them, my first year in taxes, constantly yelled at me every Monday. He would yell at me, "This is stupid. This is stupid. This is stupid." You don't want to sell. For instance, that person who comes in and yells at everybody, you don't want to sell your business to them.
Let me ask you a question. If you're just selling it and walking away, does it really matter? But I guess if you're selling it and they're making monthly payments to you, which is common,
right?
You have to be very careful.
You have to be very careful
because and that happens all the time.
Well,
they run the business into the ground. They could go BK, and then you don't get your money.
Right. Well, even beyond that, you've built up this company and you want to see it grow and move forward. And you want those employees that you've specially hired to remain there and do their job because they're dealing with your customers.
Okay.
They're, one of your people contact all your business customers and set these interviews up. You don't want her to be gone and unaware of the procedures with a new owner because he, But
you help with this? I mean, you help with all of this?
Yeah, we advise a client, this is the kind of person that we need to have you focus in on. So, you need to study the culture of that person and compare them to, how you do things.
Okay. So succession planning is setting yourself up to sell your business and also setting yourself up for retirement.
Correct.
And also setting yourself, the third part, if a freak accident happens.
Yeah. Heart attack, car accident.
Disability or whatever.
Disability. You want that, I want that, client to be prepared for those situations.
Are there a lot of people just flying by the seat of their pants? They're busy, and they don't have this setup. Very common?
A lot of them just don't think about it. Because when we're younger, we think, we're going to live forever.
Yeah.
And on top of that, if we have a thriving business, we think it's going to be so valuable and it's going to last forever. Yeah. So you want to help, and we want to help that client make sure that that business is growing or at least stabilized and has good cash flow and is profitable. And giving them all the proper advice. But we also want them to be prepared for this, potential issue or eventual retirement. Because, a lot of small businesses, don't always set aside, sufficient funds in their pension accounts. So, which would be, the ideal. Then you don't worry about whether your business, what's it worth, because you've accumulated so much money in your pension. But most small businesses don't even think about that. They go, well, I'm too young, I'll think about it later.
Now, one of the things you talked about on the phone with me yesterday that stuck out was the fact that many people, their accounting is all wrong, even to either get a loan with the bank, or it's all wrong when you're trying to sell it to somebody because they're putting things in the wrong place financially, and it doesn't look like they're as profitable as they really are. Something like that. Yeah. So help me understand that.
Well, a lot of our clients like to, get as many perks out of their business as possible. That doesn't mean that, that's an actual expense of operating that business. For instance, I have a car, a company car. And so the company bought the car, and of course I have to add back the personal use value on my end of the year W-2, but that's a valid deduction. Now, is that a normal cost of operating that business? No. Company cars are not, unless, say, you're in a business.
So that'll affect the bottom line when you're trying to sell it.
Right.
So do you pull that part out, or you just make them aware of it?
No, you have to, when you value your business, you have to take all those little perks that a good
that your business is paying.
Yeah, a pension plan. So you decided that you're going to reward yourself and your employees with this defined benefit pension plan. So you're putting, $50,000, $100,000 extra every year. Well, that's not a required part of that business. That's not an operating cost. That's an extra benefit. Now, the employees are great, and they think it's an operating cost.
But that has to be pulled out when evaluating the cost of your business.
Right. The benefit, the value, what the value is worth of your business. So, and we know how to,
Structure things.
So you can come up with, an approximate value. Now, we're not valuation experts because, that's just one area that we don't do. However, we know the rules for valuation, so we can at least come up with an estimated cost. Now, when you're ready to sell, we'll connect you with a valuation expert who will come up with a good value, and then help you find the right buyer, set yourself up so you minimize your tax on the sale of the business, but you selected a buyer who will perform and also be there, won't run your business down, so you get those payments every
With
month.
succession planning, what are the frequently asked questions that you hear from clients? Like, what do they want to know?
What do they want to know? Well, how much can I sell my business for, and what's the tax situation?
Okay.
Am I going to get taxed a lot? And how do we do this? Yeah. So,
And that's what you do. That's what you help in doing.
Yeah. I have assisted clients in selling their business, and also assisted clients in buying businesses, because there's things you need to know on both ends. What is the fair price to pay? What's the value?
If somebody wants a succession planning evaluation or whatever, there's no charge just to sit with you, to talk about what you do. Is that right? To get a feel for you.
Yeah. If a client comes in, or a prospective client comes in and says, look, I'm getting close. I work with this other firm, but they don't talk about succession planning, and they don't seem to know much about it. Can you go over, the issues that I should be concerned with, and so I can determine if I want to, have you help me? And sure, I'll sit down with them, have a complimentary half-hour conversation with them, go through, all the issues they should be aware of. And if they don't choose me, that's fine. There's no charge. I'm just there to make them aware and tell them what I can do to help them. So, yeah, I'm available.
So what about living trusts and wills?
When we sit down, good question, because when we sit down with our clients, we want to know that they at least have a will in place in case of death or disability or anything, that if they have major assets like a business and other assets, they should have a living trust, because if they don't have the will or living trust, then everything ends up in probate court. The attorneys get their fees, the court gets their fees, and sometimes, if there's a dispute on who gets what, because there's no will, then the courts determine who's going to get how much and what, versus what you think as an individual, where you want your money to go.
Can a living trust be set up pretty inexpensively?
Oh yes, absolutely. You can use an attorney or a paraprofessional.
You point them in the right direction, or you have somebody there at your office?
I give them a referral based on the needs and what their assets are, and who would be a good choice for drafting up a living trust. So I have 3 or 4 attorneys that I refer out. I have a paralegal service that I refer out to the clients, and I also give them a list of things they need to think about.
Okay.
So I help them with that, and I try to inform my clients that this is a necessity for them.
I want to ask you about, so what if you have a partner? I mean, you have to put some buy-sell agreement in there?
Absolutely.
And are there a lot of partnerships that don't have that?
That's probably one of the last things they think about.
Okay.
A good thriving partnership. You've got 2 individuals who are running the business, and each have a certain feeling as to the value of that business. So if you have a good buy-sell agreement, and especially if one of those partners decides that they don't like working with you anymore, you don't want to be in a situation where they have this unexpected or overly expected value of this company that's not really there. So a good buy-sell agreement addresses all those issues. So we recommend that with our partnerships.
I'm surprised that every partnership, I'm not in a partnership, but it seems like every partnership would get that. But is it because they started out so small that they didn't realize how big it was going to get? Is that why?
Well, you start, you have 2 friends and they decide to
start a business.
And we've seen this with Apple. in the past.
Or Facebook or whatever.
Two individuals who started this business. One of them ended up not getting, what he thought he should have got from the business. Had they set up a good buy-sell agreement, it probably would have addressed those issues. But most small business don't think about that. And my comment when I'm talking to clients in a partnership is I always bring up the point, which I think is a funny point. I say, most partnerships are like California marriages. 50% of those end up in nasty divorce. And so that's just a caution because you're in a partnership with this other person. And that could happen.
Yeah.
Could end up in a nasty
So
divorce.
from the very beginning,
get a buy-sell
an agreement of how the business is evaluated,
how you're,
what the exit strategy is,
how the compensation is,
all that stuff.
And what happens if one of the partners wants to dissolve and be compensated for what the value of the business.
And you helped them with this.
We help them.
How come I didn't know you did this, Stan?
You were never a partnership.
Are you not letting me in on everything you do all the time? You've been my accountant now for 17 years.
Well, I didn't think you needed a buy-sell agreement with a partner because you don't have a partner.
That's right. That's right.
So, and I helped you select your tax entity.
You'd like to see more of these succession planning
I think it's
clients?
I think it's needed. I need to assist these people because we've got an aging boomer population who own businesses. And they're getting ready to retire. How are they going to retire? How is it going to work?
We're out of time. Sorry to cut you off. But somebody watching this, they're an established business, started small, ended up large. They're thinking of selling it, retiring, leaving it to their family.
Have them come in and talk to me.
Okay.
I'll give them a free half-hour consultation, tell them what I think, how they should approach this. And if they like what I, propose, hire me.
Okay.
Have them come in.
And then they have the bragging right that Stan Mroz handles my accounting.
Yes, exactly.
That's what I do when I'm in the desert. I brag, Stan Mroz is my accountant.
Thank you.
Really?
Thank you.
Then they're impressed.
Yeah.
Then they're impressed.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, by the way, for coming to the show. Always a pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you.
You've been watching the Wellness Hour Consumer Report. I'm Randy Alvarez. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching the Wellness Hour, the leader in medical news with your host, Randy Alvarez, the authority on health issues.